Bizarre Brain Comics. Whoa, whoa, whoa there, Nightmare. Oh, good horse. Go to the corral. Go to the corral. Yeah. Find you an apple there. Yee-haw! Yee-haw! Ha-ha! Hey, hey there, pards. This here is the Trigger Kid. Yeah. And I'm here to tell you tales of the Wild West that never was. Ha ha ha. Ah. Ooh. And the tales we're going to tell today are about that rootin' tootin' rip snorting hero of the Wild West, Buck McDuck. And welcome to Bizarre Brain Comics. Yeah, this is where I like to take a look at some older comics, talk about the characters and creators, and then kind of break down the stories and the art. Now this one we're going to talk about today is Walt Disney's Uncle Scrooge number 306. And this is a tale from the life and times of Scrooge McDuck. And the title is called The Vigilante of Pizen Bluff. This is from 1997. And it is written and drawn by one of my favorites, Don Rosa. And I did another Uncle Scrooge story written and drawn by Don Rosa, but I like this one so much we got to do that. We got to do it too. Okay, now here. Okay, Uncle Scrooge. You know Uncle Scrooge. Donald Duck's extremely rich uncle, the richest duck in the world, and they reside in Duckburg in the state of Calisoda. And of course, Uncle Scrooge made his first appearance in the Disney Mickey Mouse animated movie of the Christmas Carol, and then they spun him off into the comics with Carl Barks re-envisioned him for the comics and made him as we know him today. And then Carl Barks, who was known as the Good Duck Artist, he was very popular, even though they didn't give credits back then. His work was very popular with the fans, and one of those fans who just loved his work, it was the fledgling cartoonist Don Rosa. Now, to my knowledge, with exception of doing some stuff in college newspapers, I told you more about him when I first did Uncle Scrooge, and he did some other non-professional side stuff. To my knowledge, as I recall, the only professional comics he has ever worked on were Walt Disney comics, most specifically Uncle Scrooge. I think he did some Donald Duck and other DuckTales. DuckTales. Woo! And there have been many stories regarding Uncle Scrooge's past, mostly references in Carl Barks' stories. How he was a cowboy and a miner and all kinds of other things. Because he traveled all over the world seeking his fortune until he finally did. And Don Rosa then did a whole series of stories, which is basically an Uncle Scrooge biography, um, which was published as The Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck. And this is labeled as part 6.5, because it's a story that goes with it, but it's outside the that book, because it was republished, reprinted as a graphic novel. And herein is when he was a minor, and he got caught up in a robbery with the Dalton gang, and took out after him with his Uncle Pothole and Wild Bill, Buffalo Bill Cody. So, here we are. We are going to take a little trip into yesteryear to catch crooks with Buck McDuck. Okay, and here we go. You can see the whole image. Now, forgive if you hear some background noises. We got some men working on the siding in the house, so might be interrupted by some banging and stuff. So, of course, this is a great cover by Don Rosa. I think that's Karl Barks. Could be a Karl Barks drawing right there. It's not Don Rosa. There's different quality in his line work. And as I said, really like the Don Rosa's work. And as is common, I really like the Don Rosa's work and his writing, and Uncle Scrooge stuff in general. The frequently, because it has more adventurous stories, but it's of course humorously told, and that's the way this is. It's pretty much a straightforward Western adventure story with a lot of humor involved. And especially with Uncle Scrooge. Now, take a look inside. Here we are, starting off in the money bin. Got this what looks like a treasure chest, and it is a treasure chest. And Uncle Scrooge is with the boys, Huey, Dewey, and Louie. And looking through some of his memorabilia, he's got this old scrapbook, and he comes across the fly bill for Buffalo Bill's Wild West show. And he starts off on a story when how he got that and how he got involved with Wild Bill. Of course, he had met Wild Bill before. Here he is coming into an old ghost town, seeing this old prospector he knows, and stops for a minute and says, "What you doing?" He said, "Oh, I'm writing a map to this gold mine that I found." He said, turns out he had this gold mine in California, and he never dug it much out of it. It's big paying load, but he went on to used it to finance some other unfinancially successful mines. So he's getting old. He can't take advantage of it anymore. He's drawing this map, and he hands it. He says, "Well, I guess I'm drawing this map for you." So he handed him the map. Scrooge, who at this time was known as Buck McDuck, and he heads off further on to town, and he's looking at the paper, the map, and it turns out it's a flyer for the Buffalo Bill's Wild West show. So there he is in town, and there's the Wild West show. Buffalo Bill himself. Of course, he's a dog, but it looks very good, looks very accurate. And the kind of stuff they had in the show, Cowboys, Indians, and they're telling the story here with the Beagle Boys and then here's what looks like a young Scrooge. What the heck? And it turns out this is a story involving Uncle Scrooge's uncle, his own uncle, Uncle Potholer, who is one of the stars of the Wild West show. And this is a story when he saved his nephew, Scrooge from the Beagle Boys. Of course, it's an old BS story anyway, and it's just a guy in the duck suit, and then he's getting tripped over. What? And there's the real Scrooge McDuck, and he doesn't like the way he's being portrayed. And here's this Indian fellow here, who is here to get a job. He's an older Indian, dignified man, but falling on hard times. He needs to support his tribe on the reservation, so he's here to make some money for that. And the name he's going by is, this is a long one, and I see if I can remember it. I guess he hasn't said it yet. So he meets Uncle. There's his Uncle Potholer, and they're not on the friendliest terms because he thinks it's the guy in the costume. Here comes Buffalo Bill, and he introduces him and said, "Oh, Buck." This is when the first time you hear him called Buck in this story. Yeah, they had an adventure with it together before, so they're familiar with one another. And said, "Oh, we can get you in on this, and we can have us a right dandy show." Meanwhile, while they're talking, and and every time Uncle Scrooge's Uncle Potholer, because his attention is off him onto Buck, and Potholer, he gets angry and he swears, and the old Indian says, that sounds like, in this case, that sounds like Sioux. Do you talk Apache too? Every time he cusses, he says it sounds like a different Indian tribe. But it turns out here, these fake Beagle Boys are sneaking in. There's P.T. Barnum. He's behind financing the operation, and these fake Beagle Boys bust in, and they're actually the Dalton gang, and they're here to rob the safe. Here we meet Annie Oakley. Yes, real Annie Oakley, and looks just like her, except she's a little dog. Just like Buffalo Bill, looks just like him. And Scrooge Scrooge shows a little bit of his sharpshooting skills and completely misses the target, or so it seems. And Potholer says, "Oh, you're terrible." Then the Indian shows up. There's the flies. He'd shot the flies buzzing around the bottle. And then the Beagle Boys, not the Beagle Boys, the fake Beagle Boys bust out. And they taken off with the money. Oh, what are we going to do? And then Potholer is so concerned because that had all that money, all of his money in the safe, because back home in Scotland, the McDuck Castle is about to go under, and all this money is to save the castle. So, and he acts just like Donald Duck. He's a sailor too. He acts just like Donald, squawking around and angry and cussing, and says, "Oh, we've got all these great Western heroes here. Let's go after them ourselves." But he wants to record it for posterity. Gets his, and here's, I think, is when we discover. Anyway, they call him one who yawns. I think is what his name translates to. Grabs a camera and photographer, take a picture of them taking off, and various times. Oh, and Potholer, he doesn't ride horses very well, and and the Indian puts him on the. Here he is. Gives his name, Gokleye. No, Gokleye, and it means one who yawns. And he straps him to his back, and he carries him. Meanwhile, they're heading out, and they're tracking it out into the Badlands, or wherever they have, out in the desert. And the Dalton boys, they're surprised that people are coming after them. And Potholer, he just talks himself up. See, he is the main character, also the main character of a series of dime novels at the time, and of course he writes them himself. and he's always the hero when he's really not very heroic. And he talks up his skills like tracking, and he tracks wrong, but then they stop, have to take pictures. Here, let me pose for this one. He can't even shoot the bow right. Then there's one of them. We've been spotted. There's one of the Dalton boys, and Buck McDuck. He's chasing him down, and watch this, because his horse is named Hortense, which makes sense. But it's a callback to the old Mickey Mouse cartoons. Hortense Horsecollar was one of the Mickey Mouse characters. She was the horse, and she always wore this old-fashioned horse collar on her for pulling the plow. So that's a nice little callback. And Hortense chomps onto the other horse's tail, and McDuck just walks right across and on his head, and then he said, "I can't stop you. I can stop your horse." And he stops the horse. And this is some great draftsmanship. The backgrounds, the scenery, it's just marvelous. And of course the figures and the action is great. Of course, it's great action and it's humorous at the same time. And stops the horse, and and that Dalton boy, he's stuck to a giant cactus. Then he takes off. I went to cut him down so they can haul him in, and he takes off running. So they follow him. Yeehaw! And go to the other Dalton boys. They tell him, give him the scoop, and to get the cactus off him and give him a ride because he lost his horse. And while he's plucking the needles out of his behind, they get to this old ghost town. That's what they get led to. Say, okay, they're in there. They're hiding in the saloon because the one who yawns scouted the place out and said, yeah, they're holed up in the saloon. So we're going to go. He and McDuck are going to do some more snooping. Meanwhile, they got to take pictures and get the others from the Wild West show. They're supposed to stay behind, but they decide they're gonna storm, and they get all this dramatic of clink, clink, clink down the street with the spurs. Except of course, Potholer doesn't have spurs, so he's just making the sound clink, clink. And they say, "Oh my gosh, we got these old geezers coming after us!" And quick, hide! they go and they have Annie Oakley stay back. You just back us up. This ain't woman's work. She's better than any of you guys. And meanwhile, the Indian and McDuck are sitting around. Oh, they see what's going to happen, so they're going to go around, bust through the back at the same time. But meanwhile, they fall through rotted cover of an old well. So they're stuck in the well. Just when the old guys smash in, well, there's nobody here, and then they say, "Oh, it's a good thing they're not." And Pothole starts describing a story. Here they are. Actually, they're hiding. They jump out and they start doing all this stuff and that. And Buffalo Bill, he adds his 2 cents into doing this, doing that, doing the other thing, just beating the crap out of all these guys. And look how big and muscular Potholer winds up looking like Popeye. But it's only writing it down. Then the real Dalton boys jump out and take them prisoner. Oh, they got some fancy shooting irons here, so we're going to keep them. Meanwhile, Annie Oakley and P.T. Barnum, they found the boys in the well, take pictures of them being saved, and then, oh, they're spotted. Scrooge takes Annie Oakley's rifle and clunks the guy on the head with a sign, because he don't shoot people. So they sneak back in and to warn the boys. Meanwhile, I got an idea. McDuck says, "You go around there and wait for my signal. You'll know my signal when I see it." And he gets Hortense, and they go up the stairs. Oh, look at this, nice and dynamic. Even though it's cartoonish, it's a nice cartoonish style, and the detail in the background Look at the detail on that, as well as the nice shading and lighting. This is great. And they go clomping through the old building. There's I think it's a squirrel or some other varmint sleeping there on the bed. And they rush and smash through the window, leaping across the chasm into the other building, right through the other window. Now, the boys who are on lookout, what the heck was that? I don't know. And then Scrooge gets his lariat out, and look at all the convoluted way he's got this thing going, and whoop, right down. And then we see catches him, and he is all strung up like in a spider's web. And then he gets back on his horse, chomping out, and across the leaps to the roof of the saloon. Look at that! Look at it, it's so dynamic. Some great action, even though it's humorous the way Scrooge. And there, as they leap, he yells, "Geronimo!" And they crash through the roof right down. Look at that! A great horse, surprising everyone. And then they threaten him. Oh, hands up, Duck! And then Buffalo Bill says, "Listen to him, Buck. They have our guns." Says, and then Potholer says, "That's right, nephew. Get him." So you can just see how angry he is. And these boys, they've got Potholer's and Buffalo Bill's guns, and they're just blasting away as McDuck bounds in on him. Look at that! Look at the anger, and they're really in for trouble. And then without showing, this is great, some great storytelling, because without showing all the violence, what actually happens, they're here describing it. It says, "Great Falls, Montana. Buck broke a chair across that Dalton's head." Taught him everything he knows. And there goes the table across the other one. And the spittoon gets knocked off his head. All this, and that's the McDuck blood in him. I just don't want to see it on the outside. And it says, "Whoa, Nelly, that would never get past the censors." And what's that? Whoo, boy. One last crunch. Whoo, boy. I bet that hurt that poor Dalton. I can only imagine what that was if it's not going to get past censors. And then here they are. He's freeing everybody. Got the Daltons captured. And here comes the Indian to back him up. And explains that the reason why they couldn't shoot him was because they had the guns that the guys were using in the show filled with blanks. and then the Indian holds his bow and arrow on him and says, "Careful, this doesn't shoot blanks." And then, there's P.T. Barnum, and they're saying, "Okay, why did you yell Geronimo?" Well, they're thinking they're friendly. All friendly, and everyone's fine and free, except for the bad guys. Why did you yell Geronimo? Why did I yell Geronimo? Well, it's easier than trying to say one who yawns. And turns out the Indian with him is Geronimo. And Buffalo Bill is so impressed, he instantly gives him a job in the show. And then Potholer starts talking up his dime novels, and got a new project. He wants to write one about his nephew, and then he envisions what it'd actually be. Nephew Scrooge and the cheapest gun in the West. So I ain't going to shoot. Bullets are expensive. So, and they're all taken off, and Bucks, he ain't going to go with him. And there's Potholer falling off the horse again, leaving Buck alone because he's got places to go, things to do. Well, they were talking about the West isn't what it used to be. All us old heroes, we're what's left. We're all that's left, and we're too old for this stuff. It's a whole new thing. The frontier is closed, and Scrooge is back off to find his fortune. And he says here, "I'll keep hunting for new frontiers, and I'll never forget those whose spirit leads me on." And I never did. And that's the end of telling the story. Now the boys are talking to him about, oh yeah, found out. Then they talk about the old Dutchman's mines. Well, he wasn't a Dutchman. He wasn't really a Dutchman, because that was common. Because Germans say, "Where are you from?" From Deutschland, and they misunderstand that as Dutch when it's actually Germany. So he was German, and he had this map, the old Dutchman's mine, and it's glued up in the map to that mine is glued into his scrapbook, and he wants to rip the thing out, even though it's autographed with Buffalo Bill and Potholer and Annie Oakley and all this other stuff, and he's scrabbling to try to get it out of the book and says, "Drat, that sister of mine, I always did told her not to buy the expensive glue." Yeah. And that's it for that story. That was a lot of fun. Don Rosa's Uncle Scrooge. It's awesome, magnificent stuff. The story is so well told. The story beats the humor, the characterization. It's just right on target. It's just on target. Yeah. And I just love that story. I just love that story, and it's because it's a merging of the two of the genres that I like. I like the Scrooge adventure stories, and I like the westerns. That's why I did it this way. So thank you for joining me. Please like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment if you would, and tell me how much you love Buck McDuck. And remember, comics are art.